So it all went well, and now, funny enough, we have to get rid of the background by just hiding it like that, okay? Because, and that map as well, in fact, delete that white map there, so that you can see, of course, we have a transparent, some kind of transparency happening in the background. You see that? Because we need transparency, or else this just won't work when we try to animate. So we are then going to save our file here, first into its native format, if you're using Photoshop or what. And then we are now going to save it for web and devices. We just need to save it into a format that can keep PNG, that can keep alpha matte transparency. So my preferred way is, of course, PNG, and then turn on transparency. That way, of course, the checkerboard there is whatever will be transparent. Of course, we still keep our strokes and circles visible. Okay, so I'm using PNG 24 because it keeps more colors. Just and then hit save. Okay, so that will save your file, and then of course back to 3D Max, where we're going to reveal whether we did the right stuff. Now we're going to open up the material editor, and of course we need to assign a particular material to our light strokes. So to do that, we're going to drag a material dynamic operator right there. Okay. Now it's a material dynamic because it's, as you can see, there are different kinds of materials you can add on there. There's material static, frequency dynamic. We are using material dynamic because this kind of animation, of course, changes over time. I mean, the light strokes don't remain the same. They evolve as they're being animated. They're not static. That's why we're using dynamic. Okay. We are then going to select any of these empty material slots here. Call it light stroke A, okay, and then we are going to drag it, of course, to that one there, to the assign material button, and make it an instance, please. Hit OK. As you can see, of course, now the scene becomes gray because if you turn on edge faces, you'll notice, of course, the scene is still there, but it's just gray because of this material. Okay, and then we are going to make our material here two-sided. Let me just make it bigger. By the way, you make it bigger by just double clicking, and then it becomes big like that, because we need to tweak this little guy here. Okay, we are going to scroll down to the maps options. Click on the maps option to expand them. You see that? Maps. We are going to jump right to the opacity map. First, let's turn it on and then click on the none button, and we are going to use a mixture of textures. So hit on the mix option. Okay, now we are using mixture because the texture must appear stronger when it's closest to the sphere. Like this light strokes must appear much more visible when they're closer to the sphere, and then at the tips of the light stroke, of course, they should be less visible, isn't it? Because of course that will be the rather good way to do things. Okay, for the color 1 slot, we are going to click on the none button, and this is where we are going to look for the bitmap. And the bitmap happens to be, of course, our light stroke that we created in Photoshop. See that? This is what we are looking for. Click on that. You can see, of course, what it's looking like already. You can even display it in the viewport so that, of course, we get to see more or less what's going on. Okay. Turn on the transparent option so that, of course, you can see what it's doing. Let me just see if it tries to change these options here. Yeah, so you can see more or less, of course, this is what we have right now. So this is the stroke that we created inside of Adobe Photoshop. And then when we try to render this, can you see what's happening? It's still gray. Okay. Anyways, I'll show you there's something that we didn't do, and I'll show you how to do it to get it right. Okay, but first let's get this part sorted. Now let's go up to the parent material, and then for the mix amount, we are going to use what 3D Max call particle age. Now this will enable us to control when the particles are actually more visible and less visible. As I said, the closer the particles, the light strokes are to the sphere, the more they should appear, and the further away, the less they should appear. So for the age number 3 here, we're just going to adjust it to 70. So this black color and the gray and the white all control how the particles actually appear in the scene and all that. Okay, again, as you can tell, there is not yet much visible difference that you can see. Okay, let's go back up. Now, because it still looks gray, let's try to go and adjust the format into which we save our file. So we'll go to File, Save As. We're going to save it as a Targa file. Targa also is also good at keeping PNG is also good at keeping transparencies. Okay, so just save it there as a Targa file. Save. 24 bits pixel. Okay. Back to 3D Max. Let's go back to our material, and we are going to try to replace it with our Targa file. Stroke. Is this a Targa file? No, that's a Photoshop file. Yeah, that's a Targa one. Okay. Okay. And let's just see if there's any impact. Not yet. Okay. Let's try saving it with the background on. File, Save As, Targa file. Overwrite, yes. Okay. Back to our file. Aha, you see that something has changed, but then only by telling through here that we can really be sure. Okay. You can see there's been some kind of an update, but it's not exactly yet what you are looking for. Okay, so let's keep adjusting things in the options, of course. Now, let's just go again to the mix map. For the color number 2, let's change this color here to a completely black color. And then hit render. Ho! Finally, you see, we are finally getting the light strokes that we've been looking for all along. It's a bit too dark. Let's brighten things up a bit by going up. Change the ambient color to a complete white, and the diffuse color and the specular even to complete white colors. There we go. So you see what is happening now. Now, the object that we've created inside of Photoshop is now being used to become the light strokes. And I know it sounds a bit magical and all that, but this is quite impressive. I just want to show you guys things from up close, but the only way to do that is if we shift the camera a bit. Let's pick up the camera's target, and we are going to move it to 0 units on all axes so that it's right in the middle like that of the scene. Okay, so that we can rotate whichever way. Now you see what happens when the animation starts. Let's just preview this. Can you see now at the beginning? That's what happened. The sphere begins to draw this nice and thick light stroke through the scene. You see that, and it continues drawing, of course, and you should check. Aha, you see that. This is truly very powerful, because you can tell, of course, how nicely the light strokes are being animated and all that, and of course it's looking fantastic. Now that over there is being caused by the wind force that, of course, we've applied earlier. It creates that little breakup of the particles just to make them a bit more dynamic, because if you are to switch it to 0, you can see, of course, they become straight lines again, and then you see, of course, there's no breakup that happens anywhere. So me, I like them. I'm just going to turn them back on. It was 3, right? Yeah, just creates a little breakup just to make our scene a bit more dynamic. Okay, so this is what's happening indeed. And if we were to zoom in to see things very, very up close and personal, let's just zoom out a bit. You can see, of course, the light stroke is actually made up of multiple thousands upon maybe millions, not millions, thousands upon thousands of our light stroke maps that came from Photoshop that we created so tediously. So now if we are very close like that and we try to render the scene, yeah, when you're up close, you can see how nice it still looks even from up close. Look at that, eh? And guess what? It renders relatively fast. And I mean, this is truly impressive. Look at that, eh? It renders fast, and we are very up close and personal to the particle flow object. So I hope you believe me now that indeed these meaningful little strokes and dots actually end up becoming the driving force behind everything that we're doing actually in 3D Max. Now, is this powerful or what? And we at Henrythejedi.com always like dynamism and freedom, and especially through creativity. So imagine you don't want the Lightstroke to be white in color. Imagine you're feeling a bit greenish or bluish even, or purplish. You can always turn the colors up like that, and then you render, and there you go. You have a purple light stroke, just like that, by adjusting the diffuse color, of course. And if you want them yellow, you render. There we go. They become yellow. You see how easy that is. And also, if you want them to glow a bit, you can increase the self-illumination option, as you can see me doing there. And there we go. They become brighter. You see that? And I believe you can even drag the opacity slot to the self-illumination slot there. There we go. You see, of course, what you can end up getting. You can even force it to have a particular self-illumination color, like in this case here. In fact, this is even better because you see the edges are more refined. In fact, let's get a bit up close. Not that close. Yeah, around there. Yeah, so that we can just tell exactly what's going on. So when you are very, very close, you can see the outlying edges are brighter, of course, than whatever is on the inside. And this is really, really wonderful. So if you were to turn this, let's see, to a, I don't know which color might work here. Let's say light blue. I wonder if the light blue, no, it's not that. So that means you just have to clear that map and render. You can see, of course, what happens. So really, this is all up to you. You can change things, you can adjust things until, of course, you are happy with whatever it is that you need to achieve. I'm putting mine back on again. Yeah, because I really like the way things are going on there. Okay. So if you were to change it maybe to something purple, because it's always the bright colors that really stand out. Yeah, there we go. That's what happens when they become purple. Okay. And then you might notice that perhaps the little sphere is a bit too small for the task it's been given. So to help it on its journey, let's go to the beginning and select the sphere and just increase the radius to something bigger, something like 30 or 50. And of course, it needs a particular nice color. I'm going to make it quite bright. You can make it any color you wish. Okay. And yeah, hit render. There we go. Now the little sphere, of course, is that nice color. And then I'm going to show you one further adjustment that you can make to make your Lightstroke animation even more spectacular. Please, of course, save your file. Yeah, so let me show you. You can create variety in your Lightstroke animation by going to File, New. Like basically, it's all about creating a new file. And yeah, we're going to create a background there. And then yeah, you are really free to create your own shapes. But I'm going to show you simple things that also work. For instance, you can create things like that. That's one shape. Then you can create another one there. And another one there. Like just random dots all over the screen. Yeah. And then we can go to the blending options as we did with the others and color overlay and make them a bit bright like that. Okay. Copy layer style and select all these layers and paste your layer style. And you also want one more just sitting inside there. Okay. And also paste the layer style and hide the background, and then file, save as, call it, let's make it a targa, call it a Lightstroke 02. Okay. Now, what you do then is you go to 3D Max, you open up the material editor. Remember, this is what we had right now, right? Now, we want to tweak things by replacing the material, so we go to the material. In the opacity map, stroke, we are going to replace it, of course, by putting in the stroke 02. Okay? And render. Something wrong is happening. Let's just confirm. Because I don't really see its updates. Turn off self-illumination for now. Just view the map. Yeah, something is wrong. Okay, the background is not. Let's see. Save it again. Targa. Yes, replace. Yes. Back to 3D Max. I wonder why is it doing this? Okay. Let me try and save this with the background on. Save as. Targa stroke 02. I'm just wondering why it's oh yeah, it looks like, there we go. It finally obeyed. So basically we had to save it with the background on. Okay, so now of course you can see the line then becomes that kind of shape. You see that it's made up of thick strokes, and those thick strokes are coming from these little shapes here that were again just randomly created and all that. Okay, and then when you see it like this, you see, so basically you can just have random kind of light strokes in your scene. And then I'm going to show you how to create just one more kind of paint it black, of course. The painting it black really is helping in getting rid of the transparency when we see it in 3D Max. Okay, now this one we are going to try to be a bit fun by making some kind of a smiling face. Yeah, you just draw the upper part of the face like that, then we drag it over the top there and close it off like that, and then we draw the lips. This is fun, isn't it? Yeah, we have a nice white lips like that, and close them off. And also below there, funny enough, Photoshop is keeping our settings. You can see it's even applying color overlay by itself. You see that? Is that smart or what? And of course we need our little eyes. Yeah, we are smiling because we are about to complete the tutorial. And this eye is a bit too big, so let's just reduce it a bit. Press Ctrl T, and yeah, just make it small as well, so we are smiling there. And remember, the trick is in the color. The brighter the colors, the more they will appear in the scene. So for instance, this one here, we're going to tone it down a bit, the upper part, copy layer style, and yeah, this lip here as well, paste it like that, and yeah, we are ready to save. As a targa, call it stroke 03. Okay, back into Photoshop, sorry, into 3D Max, and you're going to look for stroke 03, which is of course our smiling face there, and render. Aha! You see what the little smiling face is responsible of? It creates that kind of drawings. So you see, that's really the power in, coming up with random ideas So easy to create, you know. If we zoom in here, let's see what we get. And as you note, of course, the rendering time is quick, so this is really a very good kind of tutorial you can really use, you know. You see how nicely it's displaying there. This is really looking nice and cool. You see that, beautiful, and it looks so dynamic and rich, and I don't know what to say. I'm so happy. And then finally, you just want to animate the camera as well, because you don't want people to be viewing your scene from a still standing point. Okay, to do that, to make that even possible, we have to reduce the number of particles that are being emitted. So we go to the display, and then we're just going to display, let's see, 10% or so. Let me just check if 10% is good enough. Let's see, particle flow. Let's see, let's turn it back to 100%. No, make it 10% and make it ticks. It makes our life a bit easier here. But if your computer is still too slow, you can turn this back to 100% and make it geometry. For now, we just go to the birth and make the rate to 5. Just back here, make it ticks. Okay, birth, make it 50 perhaps. Okay. And then we are going to select the camera, turn on auto key, and then create a keyframe there, and then we jump all the way to the end. You see, by reducing the number of particle count for now, it makes life easier, you know. So here we just want to have the camera, of course, rotated around these particles. Just rotate your camera like that. See that, So now just be patient with it, because it's particle systems. So now if you jump to the beginning, you see what will happen now when we play back the animation. Our little sphere will be drawing, and of course the camera is gently rotating around our particle system here. You see that, Wow, we spin around the particle system. You see that? And if you feel that at some point it gets a bit too close, you can always adjust the position of things. Let's just see what we get here. So once we've animated the camera's rotation, let's go back to the particle flow, select the particle flow, each particle view. We go back here, change the particle to what it was, to 250, and it's going to take a little while to update in the scene. There we go, it has updated, and then just displaying the viewport there. And let's see what we get. As I said, please just be patient with it, because it needs a bit of time to update. There we go, there's our particle system. You see that, It's looking beautiful. And then you can always go back, of course, to the materials and use whichever other light stroke that you had before. And that's what, of course, you will end up getting. Beautiful stuff, beautiful indeed. And then I'm just going to turn back on my self-illumination map here. That makes it even more snazzy, because the edges are heightened, you know, are highlighted, you know. And remember, you just go back and you can always reload whichever particle system that you had previously, whichever light stroke that you had designed previously. You can see, of course, this one is just made up of lines and all that. Okay. And okay. Now, to create your actual animation, you just go to rendering, render, and then you force it, of course, to be the active time segment from 0 to 30 seconds. And of course, you can always adjust whether you want it to only render a particular range of scenes. Okay. And then for the output size, well, we live in the world of high definition now, so I always choose HD TV 128 by 720. Now, most important is the files button. That's where you usually tell 3D Max what files to output. So you're going to click on that, and I'm just going to look for mine here, and then I will call it render PNG render, because I always render in PNG format. And yeah, call it random motion stroke. Okay, save as type. Well, I always use PNG, as I told you, because it's number one, it keeps the alpha matte, the alpha transparency, and also the file size is quite manageable. It's small in file size, because if you render in Targa is a bit, the file size usually is a bit higher, and of course if you render in JPEG, the quality is not usually that good. So save PNG and then hit save. As you can see, of course, 3D Max now asks us what do we want to keep. Well, make sure of course alpha channel is turned on, and RGB 24-bit is more than enough that you'll ever need, and then hit OK. And then of course after you've done that, you just hit render, and there we go. Now 3D Max begins to create your render of your animation. And of course it's looking quite good. Okay, beautiful, eh? So yeah, you can see of course the rendering is going quite fast and very well, and yeah, this is really what I wanted to show you guys. And then I'll show you how to add a bit of glow to the file inside of Adobe After Effects, so that of course you'll see what happens there. So just wait until this one is done. So what you'll need to do is just render your entire scene. As I said, it's going rather fast. Once it's done, then we are going now then to Adobe After Effects. Now there's something I need to mention, and that is that everything is looking fine, okay, except that I think we can do even more, and that is we can enhance our animation by adding a flare to it, and we can do that by adding sparks, you know, that just flare around following the particle system. Okay, now to do that, the spark particle system will actually be very similar to the one driving the Lightstrokes. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. We need to create a new particle system, although of course it will have a lot of things to share in common with the Lightstroke system. So we'll go to the create panel, particle systems, and select a PF source, and of course just as before, rotate it 180 degrees. Okay, again the flow upwards. We open the particle view window, and for the birth we're also going to change the birth to a rate. Okay, and let's see, yeah, and then we also wanted to stop emitting at about 30 after about 30 frames, and then we don't want it to start emitting right away, so maybe you might have a delay of 5 seconds like that. Okay, no, 5 seconds a bit too much, so how about a delay of 1? You just see. Okay, no, maybe just a delay of 0 will do. Okay, the position object must be the same, so I'm going to add the position object and override the position icon, and of course that has to be the sphere, like that. So when you play this back, you can see of course what you are getting. And then as for the speed, there needs to be quite a bit of variation, because these are sparks, and there needs to be some kind of a divergence. We are just looking for something to make our animation look more dynamic. Okay, so when we play this back, you can see they're just gently coming out of the sphere, and the speed we can tone it down a bit, maybe to 100. Okay, so when we play this back, yeah, you see that, yeah, that is of course much more gentle. Okay, and then let's see, we don't need any rotations, and as for the shape, we are just looking for little spheres. And display, let's say geometry. Okay, and then let's reduce the size of the shapes to smaller particles like that, and we're going to add a static material to them, because this material doesn't change, it remains the same. And open up a new material, material editor slot there. Yeah, it can have the same texture as that one there. So let's drag it and make it an instance. Perfect. Now let's try to press F9 to preview the scene. And what do we get? Aha, you see of course what we are getting. Okay. And then in fact, perhaps these spheres are not perfect circles, perfect spheres. So instead we're going to drag a shape instance operator there and make it to have the same shape as the little sphere there, which is actually the particle system. And as for the scale, we are going to drag it down, way down. Let's see what we get now. You see that, eh? Okay. And we can play around with the variation of the size a bit, so you can see as I'm doing this, so that it doesn't look too predefined. So this makes it look more random. Okay. And let's just see again what we get. Yeah, so that it just looks like, you know, they belong where they are here. Maybe 13. Yeah, a scale of 13 will do with a variation of 98. So that there's really a variety in the way these little objects that you want to use as sparks will actually end up looking. You can see, of course, the scene gets a bit slow because, of course, there's a lot happening. Let's just see what we get from this view here. Okay, yeah, so yeah, it's looking good with our little sphere particles there in the scene. You may want to reduce their size and all that, it's all up to you. Okay, so yeah, maybe 10 might be a definite size. Let's just see. Yeah, okay, looks like I'll go for a size of 10. Okay, and then yeah, we are ready to render it like that. Okay, so it was just really creating a new particle system with the spheres that really drive this animation. And yeah, we are ready to render. Okay, and please let's not forget to delete the sparks particles once they're done with whatever they need to do in the animation. To do that, we're going to add a delete operator, and of course we're going to delete by particle age. Let's give it a lifespan of, let's see, 5 seconds, because these are sparks, mind you. So, and then yeah, and then just increase the variation a bit, so that yeah, so the particles will be deleted after 5 seconds. Now this is before, and this is with the deletion option turned on, and then when you turn it off, you can see when it's off there are more particles still in the scene. So that's why we delete these every 5 seconds or so. Okay, so very important to add the delete option for the particles. Okay, so yeah, once your Lightstroke animation is done rendering, as you can see mine is still in progress, what you do is the following. We go to File, Import, File, and then you go to where you saved we saved our PNG sequence. As you can see, I've got mine here. And please, of course, make sure PNG sequence option is turned on, and then hit open. And then, yeah, we're just going to drop it into a new composition window. Now, when you play back the file, you see what we have, of course. Huh? Now, there's just a problem. I don't know why it's happening, in that the color first starts like that and then it goes to purple. But anyways, that should be easy to fix later on. But the whole idea is that when we bring it into After Effects, we should be able to do some color corrections like the following. You can select the layer and then go to Effects, Color Correction, CC Toner. And you can see, of course, how After Effects tones down our scene to whichever color we might specify. You know, you can see how the kind of various changes we can implement to it. You see that, huh? So these were really just little tweaks to be done. And then let me just show you what I ended up having. Before we actually do that, let's just add a bit of glow. We'll go to Effect, Stylize, Glow. Of course, now you can see it becomes very shiny and all that. But then again, you may want to decide to control the glow that you have. Like for instance, I noticed that if you change the glow operation to luminosity, You can see, of course, how nicely things shine out. Like this was before, and then this is after. You can tell the difference, of course, that the scene looks even much more interesting with the glow effect applied to it. So this was before, and then this is after. So yeah, this is really, really looking very nice and stunning. Ha! Thank you so much for having watched today's tutorial, and I do hope that you learned as much from it as I possibly planned. And we do have a wonderful website through which you can find the rest of our content in case you want to learn more about 3D Studio Max and After Effects. We do have Facebook, our Facebook page, which you can like, and there we get to interact with one another. You know, I get to update you guys on all the latest happenings at henrythejedi.com. And you can, of course, like us on our webpage. As you can see me click on the link there. We are also on Twitter, on which we paste our latest updates, and of course we're also on YouTube, in which all our latest videos are also uploaded. So remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, and of course join us on our YouTube channel. And when you do want to boost, not even when you want to, but when you need, I know that need will come someday or another, when you need to boost your knowledge of 3D and animation and motion graphics to the next level, we have our training DVDs, and we also have our freelance works that we've been doing, which you can check out, of course, on our freelance link on our website. Okay, that will open up a link through which you can check all my latest freelance works that I've been busy with, just to keep up to date, of course, and check what you can learn from it. Okay, and of course, if you do need some freelance works for me to do for you, you can always contact me on our contact us page, and then yeah, I can help you design a 3D animation or design a website for you. So I can even make a video work for you. So yeah, thanks so much for having watched my